Hello, and welcome to the living room venue of the haunted DuQuette Abbey.
Is that what you're calling it now?
That's what we're calling it now. Hello, thank you for the coffee, dear.
What did you see your face?
Do I look okay?
For what?
Hey, I'll be
You
right
look
out.
very natural.
I'll be. That's what they said about my father in the casket. Okay. The reason I'm in a more fancy environment here is because I've got one of those Zoom kind of interview things that are coming up. That's coming up right after this. So I probably won't spend a great deal of time talking nonsense and just get down into the seriousness. No. Actually, I want to talk about presumptuous names and titles. Now, before you think that I'm trying to be snobby or unkind in my observations, just I want you to realize that magic is a colorful art form. It's meant to be a colorful art form. That's part of the spiritual juice that makes magic a viable self-transformational practice. So don't get me wrong. Not only that, but people that are in more formal magical studies, orders and societies and things like that, have lots of different titles, some of which are to apply directly to a certain level of consciousness, as displayed on say, the Kabbalistic tree of life, or associated with one of the 30 aethers. So it's serious stuff. And but if you're on Facebook, and you're probably on Facebook if you're seeing this, at least in its initial presentation, you probably have a lot of friends or people that are interested in the same esoteric things that you're interested in. And they have magic. They use their magical name as to identify them in the outer world. And some of these you can tell are well thought out, and they certainly mean something, or should, to the person that is assuming that that name. But some of them get, and I don't want to sound unkind, laughingly presumptuous. Now, magical mottos, true magical mottos, are intended. That's their purpose, to be outrageously pretentious. But from the point of view as it represents the highest level of spiritual aspiration that your meat brain can think about at that level of consciousness that you're currently in. So it sounds presumptuous to say, I am brother, I will conquer every unit of existence, or something like that. And so when you put it out on Facebook, say, hi, I'm Fred, or I will conquer every unit of existence. Happy birthday, okay? So I don't want to go too far, but we know when somebody is just completely operating from a platform of self-delusion. I am frater rigor mortis. or soror ipso facto. I am Lord Quatus Interruptus. But anyway, I want to read a couple things, okay? And somewhere along my travels, I'm sure I've shared these things with you before, but I'm trying to keep it light and brief and airy, but I can't. Okay. Constance and I were fortunate that in our youth and silliness, it allowed us to fall quite naturally into the spirit of the game of magical self-identification. For others, it might take a little more effort. No matter what your age, background, or circumstances, the process must begin by asking yourself, who am I? So, who are you? Don't answer with your name, because you know darn well that's not who you are. Don't try to avoid this question, because it's a big one, and unless you can come up with some kind of answer to this question, there won't be a magician to work the magic. Who are you? Traditionally, the phrase, know thyself, was chiseled in stone above the threshold of the temples of the ancient mysteries. That sounds like a wise and serious advice, but think about it. Chances of you truly knowing yourself anytime soon are slim to none. Know thyself? Give me a break. Even though those words represent the first piece of advice you get at the beginning of your magical career, the cold hard fact remains that true self-realization is likely to be the very last thing that's ever going to happen to you. Who and what you really are will be the final revelation in life's great mystery play. The last tiny bit of information your by then nearly infinitely expanded consciousness will process in the blinding microseconds just before you ecstatically sizzle into that pure, undifferentiated Godhead. Oh, that's what I am. Psst. You get audio visuals, oral interp. But if you don't know who or what you are, then obviously there can't be a you to take a journey. There is no you to choose the destination, no you to find the path, no you to overcome the obstacles, no you for the magical universe to torture and delight and broaden and purify and perfect. No hook of a you upon which to hang the great adventure of your destiny. But don't worry. There is a real you in there somewhere. And even though you currently don't have a clue about who or what you are, the discovery process has to begin somewhere. And you begin by first pretending you know who you are. Yes, it's like everything else in life. You're going to have to fake it till you make it. There's no other way to start. Sound silly? Sound irrational? Sound insane? No need to wait for a guru or a magical mentor or some lofty adept or high priest or priestess or some mysterious secret society hierophant to initiate you. You just have to haul off and do it yourself. Go ahead, roll up your sleeves on your magical robe and start faking it until you make it. Start right now by pretending you know who you are. It's easy. You begin by renaming yourself, by giving yourself a new homemade identity, a magical motto. So now we see why we should probably be a little more kind in our jumping to the conclusion of the pompous presumptuousness of people that introduce themselves as Lord Coitus Interruptus. Stop them. Stop them in mid-sentence. Okay. There's no time like the present. It's more than a cliche. It's a cosmological fact. It's time to give yourself a magical motto. But before you go changing things, I want you to first take a moment to appreciate the magic of your given name, because actually that's your first and most powerful magical motto. Have you played with your given name enough to squeeze all the blood out of the turnip of the unwise choice of appellation your parents burdened you with? I ran away from my middle name Milo for years. I wouldn't even tell people Milo. Lon was weird enough. They tried to call me Lonnie, and it's not Lonnie, it's Lon. Okay. Lonnie only, I only don't resent Lonnie in moments of, never mind. Too much information. No. But when I started playing with Lon, first of all, I played with DuQuette because my dad told me never, ever, ever change your name. Don't change the spelling of your name. We capitalized the Q. He says, it's magic. He says, I chose your name for magic. Never change it. Well, I was an atheist mostly through my youth, and I wasn't too impressed with the idea of magic anything. But once I got into the Kabbalah and I played with my name, and DuQuette adds just a transliteration for each English letter into each most logical Hebrew equivalent. Is a 144. And I thought that was cute because it was 12 squared, and it has everything to do with the universe is chopped up and seen as being chopped up into 12 sections, houses of the zodiac and zodiac signs. And plus it's a gross. 144 is a gross, and I thought it was cute. Ooh, my last name is Gross, man. And Lon adds up to 150, and Milo adds up to 150. So Lon Milo DuQuette adds up to 144. 444. Which sounds cool. Ooh, 666, 444. 333, and there's cool stuff, of course, that 444 would represent, and I'm still peeling away the onion of that subject. But start by playing with your own name. It might be more magical than you think, and you might not be so ashamed to identify yourself as a magical being just by giving your own name. You'll notice even on my official, where my name is written down as an officer in a magical society that would otherwise encourage you to put your magical name. I just put my regular name down. Hey, it's my magic name. But anyway, where was I going to go with this? Hang on. The magical name, okay. Oh, anyway. Keeping with the fact that my name was magical, when it came time for me to formally engage or be engaged by a formal magic teacher, and it was time for me to choose my probationer's motto. I used my own name by using my initials, LMD. LMD is how you spell the Hebrew letter Lamed in full. Hence, years and years and years, decades later, when I started operating as Rabbi Lamed Ben Clifford. Clifford's my father's name, so Lamed, son of Clifford. I wanted to choose a motto, and I didn't want to use Latin. I wanted to use French. So it was Liberté, Matrice, Dignité. Liberty, Mastery, Dignity. Thought that was cool as my initials. When I felt it was ready to take the next step, and I had a little more exalted goal of consciousness, I changed it to Pureté de l'aspiration, purity of aspiration. Years later, I would accept the magical motto of Hoath Yada, which is Enochian for true worshiper of the highest. Now, doesn't that sound presumptuous? True worshiper of the highest. Well, it's not for you to judge. Then for years and years and years, it was Adeo Sat Bene, which is Latin for so far so good. But it's a different motto now. But I'm sorry I got off on all of that. I hope it's been informative to some of you at least. I was lucky enough to meet and know Francis Israel Regardi. He was relatively a neighbor. He was just 60 miles down the road or up the road in Studio City when I met him. And we stayed in touch. Now, I know it'd be romantic and everybody would just, oh, he was the student of Israel Regardi. No, I wasn't the student of Israel Regardi. He answered my questions when I had questions to ask. And early on, I did have quite a few questions to ask, and it was a luxury to have both his address and his phone number. He and I were threatening each other to work on a project that whereby he would, from time to time, call me to go investigate local incarnations of Aleister Crowley. We were going to write that as the book Liber Nuts. I've talked to you about that. But we weren't, he wasn't my formal teacher. And when I did ask him for magical advice, like concerning the Enochian construction of our Nokian furniture and equipment, I mostly ignored his advice. So please don't project any undue virtue to my relationship with Rigardi. He was a great, charming, wonderful, normal, fun guy. And he could make a champagne cocktail out of the cheapest champagne taste like Mouton Cadet. No, that's a different kind of thing. Grove Clicquot. 25. Anyway, when he died, 1985, I believe it was, and by 1985, Constance and I both were well along the way on our magical career and the people we knew and everything. When he died, eulogies poured in. Let's see here. Shortly after Rigardi died in 1985, testimonials and memorials poured into the handful of occult and metaphysical-themed publications. Most of these in memoriams had one thing in common. They nearly all spent a great deal of time of the article telling the reader how much Rigardi admired and respected them. I was embarrassed and somewhat ashamed of my magical colleagues for their tasteless exploitation of the moment, so I wrote a parody under a magical nom de plume, mocking their self-serving articles. And I got that published too. I prevailed upon a sympathetic editor of a prominent esoteric magazine of the day who was kind enough to publish it. If you think it sounds ridiculous and absurd, believe me, it is not nearly as ridiculous and absurd as some of the real in memoriams published after his death. This silly little parody is my most sincere thank you gift to Israel Rigardi, and my way of telling him how much I truly loved, respected, and admired him. I know he would be laughing the loudest. Israel Rigardi, his favorite student, remembers. By Frater Stonehenge Equinox. Now, you just don't say the word Stonehenge Equinox, just Stonehenge Equinox. In order to say the title, Stonehenge Equinox, you have to raise an eyebrow, look down your nose slightly, deepen your voice, and go, Stonehenge Equinox. Like that. Israel Rigardi, his favorite student, remembers, by Frater Stonehenge Equinox, as told to Lon Milo DuQuette. It wasn't long after Israel Rigardi met me that his health began to fail. Even though we met in person only twice, I still managed to have a profound effect upon his life. They say you never have a second chance to make a good first impression, and if I say so myself, Rigardi's first impression of me was a lasting one. At the time, I did not know his address, so I staked out his post office box in Studio City. After 3 days, he finally arrived to pick up his mail. He almost missed his chance to meet me, for at last I had fallen asleep on the sidewalk near the newspaper racks in front of the building. Destiny, however, could not be thwarted, and the gods guided his tiny footsteps to tread on my left hand and forearm. Luckily, he was not hurt badly in the fall, and as I helped him gather his mail from the gutter, I seized the opportunity to introduce myself. Equinox is my name. Stonehenge Equinox. You're the reason I'm into magic. He responded with an astounding display of mental telepathy. I don't suppose you're insured? He asked, not concealing the fact that he already knew the answer. I followed him to his car, where I displayed my tattoos and treated him to an impromptu performance of my diagonal pillar ritual. He feigned disinterest, but I could tell he was favorably impressed. Great magicians don't need words to communicate with each other, and so I was not surprised to see him speed off in his car without uttering a sound, although he did gesture. Our next meeting was more mystical and intimate. As Providence ordained, I found his phone number scrawled on the restroom wall at the Bodhi Tree bookstore in West Hollywood and immediately gave him a call. Playfully disguising my voice, I told him I'd thrown my back out and made an appointment for a chiropractic adjustment. There's no question that the man was omniscient, but he seemed genuinely surprised to see me, and then my then-girlfriend, Diana Ishtar Sophia Morgana, appear at his door. The dear man asked if I'd come for the spinal adjustment, and voiced his delight that I'd brought someone to help me home. What a saint. And you know, he was right. After his treatment, I was unable to walk for 3 weeks. Thus began a 5-year odyssey of intense spiritual correspondence. Every Friday, I mailed him my magical record, dream diary, semen sigils, and excerpts from my still unfinished novel, Sex Wizards of Phlegm. Each week, like clockwork, my letters and packages were returned to me seemingly unopened and unedited. However, to a trained clairvoyant such as myself, adept in traveling in the spirit vision, these silent messages were a treasure chest of deeply personal magical instruction and encouragement. Each page dripped with his energy, and all were alive with psychically transmitted practical advice, initiatory ordeals, and occult secrets. It was in this manner that he consecrated me, psychopomp of North Hollywood. Then, shortly before his death, he chose to abandon our astral correspondence and communicate to me on the material plane by actually writing me a letter. It was in this last letter that he poignantly revealed his deep personal affection for me, by beginning his message by addressing me as dear. It was also in this letter that he revealed a mystic precognition of his own impending death. After advising me on matters of mental health, personal hygiene, and the proper use of the English language, he closed with these chilling prophetic words. It will not be necessary for you to ever contact me again. That's Stonehenge Equinox. And I guess he gets resurrected every once in a while here on Facebook. People, address me as Baba Lon and Rabbi Ben Clifford and Stonehenge Equinox. I guess there's worse things to be called. And I'll give them time. They'll call me that too. Anyway, I gotta go. I gotta get pretty. See you tomorrow, hopefully. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law.